Hey guys, I hope you're all doing very well. Welcome back to another video, and today I want to talk about Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Now, the Spider-Man movies have been one of my favorite superhero movies I've watched. I definitely think the Sam Raimi trilogy is still my favorite, but I also really love the Tom Holland versions as well, where Sony and Marvel collab to do their Spider-Man franchises. And I still think No Way Home is one of my favorite Spider Man movies and also one of my favorite superhero movies of all time. And kind of getting into Across the Spider Verse, I had pretty good expectations. I watched Into the Spider Verse a while back. I did watch it again to kind of familiarize myself with its story a little bit. And I could say it's a great movie. It's got some great animation. I really love the way that they kind of replicate the animation with a comic book style very well. The voice cast did some amazing performances, not just to kind of build up like some sort of comedy and stuff that you've seen from many other superhero movies, but actually kind of build up emotional tension as well, and some great interactions. But I also felt with Into the Spider Verse that maybe it's, for me personally, the pacing and its sequences was a tad inconsistent, and Kingpin as a villain in that movie was not the strongest. But I still thought the movie was great regardless. So I had high expectations watching Across the Spider Verse, and I could easily say it's better than Into the Spider Verse. I think it does everything that Into the Spider Verse did very well, but they really expanded its plot and its narrative massively. They really build up some of the emotional characters, building up tension and just building up the emotions as well, very very well. The voice casting was great, and I think they really perfected the animation still that they did before. So overall, Into the Spider Verse, no, sorry, Across the Spider Verse is a really really good film. Now, to kind of talk about this movie, I don't want to kind of get into spoilers by speaking about the plot, but I'm kind of summarize really what the movie is set into. So really, the way the movie starts is it basically starts literally from the point from Into the Spider Verse, and now you have Across the Spider Verse, and kind of like Into the Spider Verse, you mainly follow Miles Morales and his universe, and he comes entangled with other variants of Spider-Man that come across to his universe or into other universes as well. So that's kind of really the same sort of theme happens with this movie that I did from the last one. I don't want to kind of go into any sort of depths into the plot and the summary because I do believe there are kind of spoilers, and I don't really want to sort of talk about them. So I want to kind of mostly talk about the main themes about this movie as well. Some of the things that I really liked. So some of the things I've really enjoyed about Across the Spider Verse, like I did with Into the Spider Verse, was the animation. I think the animation they did a really good job. I really like the way that they kind of combined and fused the animation with a comic book style and trying to kind of build narrations as well. It's mainly a kind of understanding the stories of other Spider-Mans from different universe. And I think that was a really good thing that they did from the first movie, and they definitely uh, put this into the sequel. So that's one thing I liked. I really think they really delivered a lot of the action scenes very well. Although I wish that there was kind of maybe there was like some scenes where there wasn't really so much action that was happening. But most of the times when you do kind of get into some action sequences or any sort of scenes that builds up tension, they did a really good job, building that up, building the development of what happens next. And I think those sort of things that they made in this film was definitely a much better improvement from the first movie, and I could really appreciate that. So also I would have to say with the voice acting as well, it's pretty much perfect. I think the script that the actors followed was really good. The writing was very well put together. It's not like for most superhero movies I've kind of lost faith with a little bit is just how much cringe and lazy dialogue has been written out. Every single time you read it, it feels like it's been chat GBT generated. they just want to think of like some sort of comedy lines that they want to come up with and just toss it into there. You don't really feel like it when you watch this one. It really does have a lot of emotions that it builds up. It builds up, it builds up friendship and trust as well. That sometimes that people would lack as well. And it really did kind of connect with me listening to some of the writing and some of the acting performances from that. And I think that was a very good thing that they did. So, yeah, most of the stuff overall was very good. And one of the things I think you're going to kind of get into in this movie, which I think is going to be the most thought out that this movie does deliver on, is its story. The story doesn't necessarily follow one narrative or one villain. So you're kind of left with like many characters that they're trying to fight for a reason, but you wouldn't know what their purpose was. So I think sometimes it kind of builds those things up, and it's kind of changes the focus a little bit when they kind of getting through the sequence of events of being in different alternate universe and timelines, and I think it's kind of a great idea that they kind of went through that, and it kind of really expanded its story and its narrative very well. So I was pretty impressed with that. But yeah, as much as I would really say like how in depth and diverse its story is, and it just doesn't really just follow just one particular narrative or one villain. I think as much as how in-depth its story is and how far it reaches, it did create an issue where I would say the movie's runtime ran too long, and I think they did drag too much time and scenes in this film, where I really do think that they could have really condensed it and make it shorter, maybe in a similar runtime to Into the Spider-Verse, because I think Across the Spider-Verse was about 2 hours 20 minutes, and I think Into the Spider-Verse was just under 2 hours. So I think they could have really fit those sort of sequences in with a similar runtime, like Into the Spider-Verse. But to be honest with you, that's really nitpicky. I wouldn't really critique that as a real big issue. It was kind of a little bit. It did kind of had a little bit of a jarring effect of how long it did pad the time though. But I think for majority of what this film achieved, it definitely achieved it better than what I felt with Into the Spider-Verse did, and that's definitely something I would really consider. And certainly when you do watch this movie, it does definitely get you hyped for Beyond the Spider-Verse, which will be the next movie in the franchise. So overall, this is a great movie. I really had a good time watching it. I think for definitely people who are really want to get back into the superhero movies and really get into really nice, well put together animation, you won't feel disappointed with this. So overall, if I had to rate Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Really, there isn't any complaints I could really say about this movie. This movie has really no faults at all. Apart from maybe I would say the movie's runtime does drag a bit too much. A little bit, kind of. But for a lot of what this movie does, with its great animation, its great acting, it has some really emotional dialogues as well, and the way it builds up tension is not always so predictable, but it really is self-aware that it can actually develop very well to the next part of the sequences of the film. And certainly when watching this movie, getting excited for Beyond the Spider-Verse will definitely be interesting to see. So, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And, yeah, see you later.